Okay, let's get into our lecture number one. Last week, I have just introduced the course. We understood just the course outline and the assessment part. Okay, so today we are going to get into our lecture number one. This lecture just introduces us again about operating system. So the topic of operating system is not new for us. We have been using operating system for many years. In our mobile phones also we are using operating system. Last week I told you operating system is not new for us, but in this course we are going to understand the in-depth concept of operating system. How do operating system works, the structure of the operating system, when we have more than one process running in the system, how do they actually get implemented in the system. Like I told you, the pain of operating system, it is not easy for the operating system to run many jobs from the users. And I told you one point in the previous week to remember that in this course, we are not just going to discuss about single user operating system like our laptop or our desktop, where I am the only user and I have only a laptop, which means the operating system is serving only one user. So we are not going to discuss about that. We are going to discuss about like a multi-user operating system. We have one operating system where multiple users are connected. Okay, if one user, one computer, it's easy because it's easy to manage the system. But when there are more than one user and an operating system has to handle all the requests from the users, it is going to be a difficult thing. So slowly from lecture number 2 onwards, we are going to discuss about the structure of the operating system, how exactly we are going to get our process executed in the operating system, all the points which I have told you in the previous week in the course outline, that the in-depth concepts of operating system we are going to understand. Okay, but this lecture just give us an introduction about operating system. Some points already we are familiar in this lecture. So some points you will see that okay, already we know this. Some points you will feel they are new points. So let's get into our lecture number one. Okay, so the first point we are going to discuss about is the examples and the definition of the operating system. What are all the main jobs of the operating system, the architecture of the operating system, then how exactly we have different user interfaces. This point already we know, we are using them. Okay, so types of system structure or architectures, internal structures we are going to understand, and the operating system structure, computing environment, and something related to open source operating systems. These are all the main content of the lecture we are going to see today. Okay. So before we get into the definition or to read the definition here, what is your idea related to the operating system? What exactly the operating system does? Can someone explain or give me an answer with your experience or with your understanding related to operating system? What exactly is operating system? I want to make the class interactive because if only I will be speaking, then you feel it is boring. So it will take like a long class. If you are going to speak in between, the class will become interesting, and your colleagues, your friends will also understand. So someone from the class, what is your idea related to the operating system? If you are feeling shy to speak, you can type in the chat box also. You can give a understanding of operating system, or you can provide me the examples also.
It is most important software in computer.
Okay, it is most important software in the computer that we understand from the beginning we are using it. Okay, so from your understanding, I'm asking for all the students, from your understanding, what do you think the operating system does in the computer? We are already familiar with the operating system. Okay, give me an example, give me some examples of operating systems which we are using.
Windows,
Windows. Windows is the familiar one. We are using Windows. What other operating systems we are familiar with?
iOS,
iOS in the Apple mobile phones. And what other operating systems?
Linux, Unix,
Linux, Unix. Okay, so we have some examples now of the operating system. We have computers in Windows family, which is Windows operating systems like Windows 7, Windows 10, Windows 12, like all the operating systems from Windows. We have the Unix or the Linux family, where we have different type of Unix and different type of Linux. Okay, and in the mobile phones, we have Android family, where we have Android operating system, and from Apple we have iOS operating system. Okay, so since we have understanding of the examples of operating system, why do we say the operating system is the most important software in the computer, and what do you think it does in the computer? Why actually we need operating system in the computer?
Because it allow us to download or open programs.
Okay, so one job of operating system, it is going to allow us to download or work with the programs in the computer. Okay, so any other example? Can anyone provide what operating system does in our computer? Okay, so can we work on the computer without operating system?
No.
No?
No. So everyone agree with me that without operating system, our computer is actually zero. So we have a big computer. What do I mean by big computer? With good processor, good memory, good hard disk. But if we don't have an operating system, our computer is zero. It can do nothing. Okay, so which means it is the most important software. As the definition we are seeing, operating system is the most important software that runs on a computer and acts as a intermediary, which means it is in between the user of the computer and the computer hardware, which is in the middle. The operating system is in the middle between the user and the computer hardware. So which means computer cannot understand our language, and we cannot understand computer language, because we know computer can understand only zeros and ones, binary, zeros and ones, machine language. Okay, so if I have to tell computer to do something, the computer cannot understand. If the computer is giving me some output, I cannot understand that output. It's like a intermediary, like a translator. We know the job of the translator. If I want to explain something to you in English and you don't know English, so we want some translator who translate from English to Arabic, Arabic to English. So in the same way, computer cannot understand our language. Operating system acts as a intermediary between the user and the computer. That is one important part. And what operating system does, it will work, it normally works in the background. Okay, so with the help of that, what it will do, it will make everything easy for the user, because with the help of operating system, we can execute the user programs and solve user problems. What do we mean by this? We are going to understand later on how operating system is going to solve the user problems. One point we already know, that if we want to run something in the computer, we need to take the help of operating system, because we can open, we can click, we can double click, we can work with the files, programs with the help of operating system only. Okay, so we understand one point. With the help of the new versions of Windows, like if you take Windows 7 or if you take the old version of Windows, if the new version is coming, what Microsoft or any other operating system they are doing, they are trying to make the computer convenient to use, which means they are going to make everything easy for us, so that we can easily complete our task in the computer without having to search for any option. If you understand the olden days, for everything we need to type the command, we need to memorize the commands. It was very difficult to work on the computer in the olden days. But now, just even small kids who are going to school, or even who are not going to school, they are just taking the laptop and they are using our mobile phones easily, because it's very easy to use now. So who is doing this job for us is operating system. Okay, and the operating system gives us a feature which will make the computer hardware to use in a efficient manner. What do we mean by efficient manner? Again, I will explain in later lectures. So we can easily organize, we can better use our computer hardware with the help of operating system. These are just some uses. I will explain the remaining uses in the coming slides one by one. Okay, we already seen the various families or the versions of the operating systems examples. So there are various operating systems. Okay, for the mobile, we already clear with this. Embedded operating system. These are the operating systems. Normally, we need to know about embedded systems. Embedded systems are nothing but, these are the operating systems are a small kind of operating system used in electronic equipment, like we know photocopier. We have microwave oven in our home. We have washing machine in our home. We have AC in our home. So embedded computers are nothing but small computing system put in the big electronic device. Like if you take the photocopy machine is not a computer, but we can program everything on the photocopy machine. We have small processor where we type the buttons, how many copies we want to take. Do you want to take on the both the sides, or do you want to make a small copy? Do you want to make a big copy? Which paper you want to choose? Because photocopy is a mechanical device. Just by pressing a button, it will take the printout. But we bring the computer in photocopy with the help of embedded computers, which means some computing power or the computer processing power is added in the electronics. Okay, because AC is not an AC is not a computer, but we know we can program our AC. We can set the temperature, we can increase, decrease the temperature, we can set the timer when we want to switch on the AC, when we want to close the AC. So what now we are able to do, we can program the AC. Okay, in the same way, washing machine also, microwave oven also, like we can set the temperature in microwave oven, how long we want to cook, what is the temperature we want to cook, when the oven should start, when the oven should stop, how long it should work. We can set some programming. So these kind of devices, normally they use embedded operating system, which means it's a kind of a small operating system put onto a big electronic device. Like remember the examples like photocopy machine, printers, ACs, washing machines, microwave ovens, cars. There are many places where we are using now embedded operating system. So for that, we have QNX Linux and Linux embedded. There are different kind of example of operating system. So we have for computers, we have for mobile phones, and we have for embedded devices. Okay, these are all the examples of operating systems. Okay, now remember our course is completely based upon this. All these points we are going to cover in our course in many lectures. Okay, we are going to start from next class. We are going to start from process management. First point. Okay, so this particular point is very, very, very important in our course because this is going to take around 4-5 lectures in our course. Our course has got around 12 lectures. Out of that, 4-5 lectures we are going to discuss about process management. Very important point in our course because we need to understand first of all what is process, how do the process works, how do the operating system manages the process, scheduling, so many things related to process we are going to understand in coming lectures. Okay, once we understand about process, for running the process we need memory. Okay, so can someone tell me what are all the different type of memories we have in the computer? What are all the okay, RAM and ROM, right? We have two memory which is inbuilt in our computer. We call it as RAM and we call it as ROM. RAM stands for random access memory. ROM stands for read-only memory. So when we want to run our programs in the computer, first of all, we need random access memory because now in my computer, this PowerPoint is open. Where is this PowerPoint stored? This PowerPoint is stored inside the random access memory. Okay, we have my Windows operating system running in my computer. So where is this Windows operating system is loaded into the memory that is going on to random access memory. In the same way, when I open a new program, the new program will go on to the random access memory. So if we have more users and more people are opening the programs, we need more memory. Okay, so I will give one example to remember. Suppose there are 5 courses, 5 teachers, okay, and we have 5 classrooms. It is easy because we can say one teacher, okay, you take class number 1, teacher number 2 will take class number 2, teacher number 3 will take class number 3. Teacher number 4 will take class number 4. Teacher number 5 will take class number 5. It's easy because 5 teachers, 5 classrooms. It's very easy. But if there are 10 teachers and only 5 classrooms we have, then it is not going to be easy, because we cannot tell to one teacher that take one classroom, because now we have few classrooms, more teachers. What we need actually, we need some kind of a scheduling. We need some kind of a scheduling. We need some kind of a management. In the same way, in the computer, we have the resources like memory, storage, input and output devices. They are very limited in the computer. Our memory of the computer is very limited. Okay, can someone tell me in the class, what is the RAM you have in your laptop? If you're using laptops, what is the RAM you have in your laptop? Any one example? How much RAM you have in your computer? How many GBs or how many MBs you have in your computer? Have you checked in your computer? What is the RAM?
I guess 12.
Sorry?
12.
12 GB. 12 GB of RAM is very good RAM. It's very powerful RAM. Any other example, students, from your computers?
8.
8 GB. 8 GB is also better. Okay, so if you look at our laptops, we normally have 4 GB of RAM, we have 8 GB of RAM, we have 12 GB of RAM, 16 GB of RAM. The more you buy, the price of the laptop is going to be very expensive, because RAM is not cheap, RAM is going to be expensive. In the same way, in computer, we cannot have unlimited memory. I'm talking about random access memory. We cannot have, like, okay, another example. How much hard disk you have in your computer? How much hard disk we have in our computer? Any example from your computers? The hard disk capacity?
1 terabyte.
1 terabyte. 1 terabyte. Some people might be having 512 GB, half of that. 512 GB, or some people might be having 1 terabyte. Okay. So if you can understand this, hard disk 1 terabyte, which means very huge. RAM just 12 GB. Understand the difference, right? So just 8 GB of RAM, 1 terabyte hard disk. My laptop has got 12 GB of RAM, 1 terabyte hard disk. Now, what is the huge difference between this? 1 terabyte of hard disk is very cheap, but 12 GB of RAM is very expensive. That's the reason why we cannot have unlimited memory in our computer, which means we cannot have GBs of memory in our computer. So what we understand with this point, the random access memory is very expensive, and we cannot have huge random access memory in our computer. So what we have to do, like I gave you the college example, 5 teachers, 5 classrooms, okay. 5 classrooms, 10 teachers, difficult to manage. 5 classrooms, 20 teachers, very difficult to manage. Then we can get a option. Teacher, can't we increase the classrooms? As I told you, increasing the classroom is not going to be easy. We cannot have space. We have to put lot of money. We have to spend lot of money for making the classrooms. Remember the same example for the memory. Memory is not cheap. If you want more memory, we cannot simply put the memory in our laptop or the computer, because there is some limit in the memory. So now what operating system has to do? With the limited memory, the operating system has to manage all the process which is running in the computer, which means we need to have some kind of a scheduling. Like, we have the timetable. If 1 teacher, 1 classroom, we don't need any schedule. If 2 teachers, 1 classroom, we need a schedule. Who is going to take first? Who is going to take later? Like if there are 20 teachers, we need a good schedule. If there are 40 teachers or 100 teachers, we need a schedule. In the same way, for managing the memory, the operating system has to deal with that in a different way. So in the lecture about memory management, we are going to understand how operating system is going to manage the memory. So these lectures looks like difficult, looks like heavy, but if you understand the topic, they are very interesting, which means we are going to understand how exactly the operating system is working in the background. Okay, so these two are very important lectures in our course. I told you process management will take 4-5 lectures, at least 4 lectures. Then memory management is going to take 2 lectures to understand. Okay, then in our computer, we have many devices. Okay, every time we are going to add a new device, we are going to install the device, we are going to remove the device, we are going to manage the devices. And sometimes, more people want to use the devices. So operating system, how does it is going to handle the devices? I hope you are understanding my points. So all the hardware related thing, the process related thing, the operating system is going to manage. That's the main function of the operating system. Handles the process, handles the memory, handles the storage devices, handles the user interface. I will explain user interface in the coming slides. Okay, along with that, it's going to handle the security and protection of the computer. And when one computer is communicating with other computer, it has to manage the communication also, including input and output devices. Okay, so storage, input and output devices. So these are the key functions of operating system. In this course, we are not going to talk about communication and security because these two actually part of networking. So in the network courses and the security courses, you are going to understand this. We'll just have a brief introduction about user interface, but our topics are going to be process management, memory management, storage management, input and output, device management. In these 4 topics, and little part of security is there. One lecture to understand the security. We are going to understand the key functions of operating system. Okay, just to understand the structure of the computer, maybe you are all familiar with this kind of picture before. So if you can look at this picture, so here is the computer hardware, the user like you and me. Okay, we are all now the users. We cannot directly go and talk to the hardware because as I told you, hardware cannot understand our language and we cannot understand the language of computer hardware. So for that reason, we have different levels. Okay, we have some system programs, we have some application programs. Okay, system programs are like compilers, assemblers, or some software which work in the system like operating system. And application programs are like Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, internet browser, the applications what generally we do use. Okay, so we have different type of software here. Now the user use the software directly. We cannot go on to the hardware. If we want to go and do something on the hardware, it is with the help of operating system. If you can look at this picture, operating system is like an intermediary here between the user and the computer hardware, which we understand in the definition. It is in the middle. Anything you want to do, any operation you want to do on the hardware or any output you want to receive from the hardware, it is with the help of operating system. That is the structure. Okay, so we know what it is. We need not to spend more time here. We know what is hardware. We know what is operating system. Application programs, the programs we normally use, programs that performs a specific usual task other than the system maintenance functions like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or anything what we use generally. System programs, they are the type of programs that controls some aspect of the operations of the computer like operating systems, compilers, assemblers, device drivers, utility programs like maintenance, backup, restore. So all those things comes under system programs. Okay, so the day-to-day operations, what we do with the help of application programs, some maintenance related task, computer related task, we do with the help of system programs and the user. These are the structure. Okay, so we know this point about user interface. User interface is nothing but with the help of user interface, the user is going to interact with the computer. Okay, which means it is a mechanism with the help of which we are going to interact with the computer. Okay, so there are different type of user interfaces we have. Before we go into the user interface, so there is a definition, official definition. The program with the help of which the user is going to interact with the computer is called as shell. Please remember this, underline this. Important to understand. What is shell? Shell is a program. In our computer, we have different programs. So shell is a program. Please remember, the language here is coming from Unix or Linux operating system. In Windows, we don't call it as a shell. Okay, but this language of shell is coming from Unix or Linux. Please remember that. So shell is the program through which the user interact with the operating system, which means if I have to send a command or some input to the computer, I need to take the help of user interface, and the name given for that user interface is shell. Now they say there are different type of shells we use. One is like Windows. What do we use? Icon based point and click system, which means the one what we are using in the Windows. So we use the icons on the desktop, we click and we open. Same thing in the Android, because we have the icons in the screen, we just click and we open. It's easy. Okay. Other type of shell is keyboard entered commands, which means for everything we need to open the commands. We need to type the commands. Like the Unix, we have to open the Unix shell, and then we have to type the commands. So what is the comparison here? It is simple to learn and use. It is harder to learn, but it is more flexible and more powerful to use, because we can do programming with the help of this keyboard entered commands. It's powerful shell. Okay, so that's the difference between them. And in the new systems, we know we have touch screens like our mobile phones, requires new interfaces, mouse not possible or not required, desired, actions and selections based on gesture, like we click and we open, virtual keyboard for entering, like we get the virtual keyboard on our mobile phone. When I want to type a message, automatically the keyboard appears. So the examples coming from the examples coming from Android and Apple. Okay. Along with that, we can have voice commands also. Okay, we can just, like we use Siri or Google Assistant to give the voice commands. Okay, so these are all different type of user interfaces. With the help of these interfaces, we are going to communicate, or we are going to talk to the computers. Hope all the points are clear till now. Okay, so another important aspect of the operating system is file system. Okay, so I am not going to explain much on file system today, because later on when we talk about the storage, we are going to discuss exclusively about file system. Okay, so what is file system? Just understand today the definition. In detail, we are going to understand about that later. Okay, so with the help of file system, what operating system does with the help of file system, it controls how the data is stored and retrieved. Which means when I am having a file, when I just click save in the computer to save the file, how do the operating system take the data from me, which means my file, and how it is going to save in the hard disk? And when I open the file, how it is going to get my file from the hard disk and bring that file to show me the file in front of me. So how do the operating system is going to manage the data? How do the operating system is controlling how the data is stored in the hard drive or even in the network, or retrieved from the hard disk or the network? So to deal with this topic, we need to have a broader understanding of the file system. We are going to discuss about that possibly in our lecture number 9 or 10. Okay, so we'll discuss about that later on. Just for today, understand what is file system. With the help of file system, we are going to store or retrieve data from the computer. There are some names given for the file system: NTFS, New Technology File System; EX3, EX4, FAT file. This is old system. This is from Microsoft only, but now we are calling it as NTFS. The FAT is old Windows, like Windows 95, Windows XP, or the previous operating systems like disk operating system, DOS. These are the old versions of Windows. There they were using FAT32, but now they are not using FAT32. We are using NTFS. This is a new technology file system, which now we are using in the Windows computers. Okay, so these are all the systems we use in Linux or Unix. Okay, as I mentioned, I am not going to go into the details. You need to have a broader understanding of this topic. Later on, I will show you the example, what is the difference between them, how NTFS is different than the extended file system. So we'll see the examples, how the files are stored, how the files are retrieved from the computer. We will understand that in our later lectures. So just today, take the definition only. Okay, now we are moving to another topic. So when we talk about the computer system, we need to know about the different type of processors we use in the system. We have single processor system, we have multi-processor system. I hope you are all familiar with the topic. So single processor means it's only one single processor inside the system. Multiprocessor means we have more than one processor. Okay, now tell me from your experience, how can we have more than one processor in our computer, in our laptop? Is it really more than one processor? Can we have more than one processor in our laptop? Can we have more than one processor in the laptop?
No?
No, because if you look at our the mechanism of the laptop, so we have a motherboard, and that we see normally only a single processor. Okay. Can we have more than one processor in the server? I am asking about server computer. We see in the labs, the big computers. Okay, I just want to know, because these topics are not new. That's why I'm asking questions. Okay, so what do you think the difference between single processor and multiprocessor, from your understanding? Single processor, the difference between single processor and multiprocessor? Whatever you understand, that's enough. General examples will be okay. The difference between single processor and multiprocessor. What do you think? Just generally give me answer. Whatever you think. It may be right or wrong. Don't worry about that.
It is one and this more than one.
It's more than one. But what do you think the difference will be? What happens if I have one processor, and what happens if I have more than one processor? Just relate the topic with general example, and you can give me any general example answer. The difference between single processor and more than one processor, multiprocessor. Okay, this is like, doing the work by one person and doing the work by more than one person. Okay, if I give you a task, okay, so you have to prepare something. Okay, and if I give the job to one person, it is going to take a lot of time. But if the same thing, I ask two people, okay, half. You are going to do some part, the other person is going to do the other part, it is going to take less time. Maybe you have the understanding of the topic in your mind, maybe you are unable to express to me in the class. Okay, so I hope you are all familiar. If the single person doing the job, it is going to take long time. But if more than one person is doing the job, it is going to complete the job very fast. Okay, so that is microprocessor system. So what is microprocessor system? More than one processor, and the processors share the memory. What do we understand with this? They share the memory, they share the system clock, which means the system clock. I hope you understand what do you mean by system clock. So for every system, there is a clock speed with the help of which the CPU works. That is called as a clock speed or the system clock. And we know the data goes and comes with the help of a bus. This is not a bus we go to the college or come from the college. The bus means here we have the data bus. I hope you all completed the computer organization course in the last semester. So where we understand about there are different type of bus systems we have. Like we have data bus, address bus, control bus. So in the computer, we have a bus system to carry the data, to carry the signals, to carry the instructions, addresses also. Okay, so what we understand here, more than one process, but they share common memory, system clock, and the bus. So we call these systems as parallel systems, tightly coupled systems. Okay, what is the advantage? Increased throughput. What do we mean by throughput is more process can be completed in a short time. Okay, as I told you, if one person is doing the job, it's going to take long time. If more than one person is doing the job, the time is going to be, we are going to complete lot of work in a short time. That is throughput. Remember this throughput. In lecture number 4, again we are going to discuss about throughput. So what is increased throughput? in a small time we can complete more jobs. Why? Because not one person, more than one person, more than one processor is working. Okay. And easy to scale. Economy of scale means we can increase the speed. We can put third processor, fourth processor, fifth processor, sixth processor. Easy to, what do you mean by scale? Scale means increasing. We can easily, we can have easy to increase. No need to buy a powerful computer. We can add another processor to make it faster. Okay. And once we have more than one processor, the reliability, we don't have any problem in our computer. So graceful degradation or fault tolerance. If there is any problem in one processor, another processor will take the work for us, which means the computer is not going to close down. The computer is not going to hang. There are no problems in the computer, because if one processor is not working, the other processor will take care of it. So these are the advantages. Okay. So the multiprocessor systems we use in today has got two types, which is asymmetric and symmetric. So what is symmetric? If you can look at this. So what I explained to you here, this is something like they share the memory, they share the clock, they share the bus. But here, if you look at this, every CPU has got its own memory, cache memory. It has got its own registers, but they share the common memory here. Okay. So symmetric multiprocessing, what it does here, uses the processor performs all the tasks within the operating system. So each processor has its own set of register. Anyone know what do you mean by register in the class? From computer organization, you should know what is register. What is register? Anyone remembers? Anyone remember about the registers? What is actually the registers?
Recorder.
Okay, so recorder, something. Okay, any other answer, students? Register.
Marker.
Again. Okay, please do remember, register means small amount of memory on the CPU. Okay, so if you want to store small amount of data and small amount of instructions, we are going to store that on the registers, which is on the CPU. Okay, please remember, the register is also a type of a memory, but it cannot hold big memory like RAM. Okay, it can store only little amount of memory. So the CPU quickly take the data from registers for processing. Okay, like whenever we are declaring the memory variables or storing instructions in the system, the small amount of data will be stored onto the CPU registers for speed processing. Okay, so this is also a memory. And we know cache memory is also a kind of a memory which stores the data from the main memory. Okay, so whenever the CPU want to get the data, first of all, it checks in the cache memory. If the memory is available, it will process quickly, because cache memory is very close to the CPU. It is not on the CPU, it is close to the CPU. Okay, if it wants any data, it will check in the cache. If it is available, it will process very quickly. If it is not available, it will go to the main memory. It will bring from the main memory, which means the cache is used to increase the speed of the computer. What we understand here in this setup is symmetric. Each CPU has got its own registers, its own cache memory. So they will be working a little bit faster comparing to other type of systems. But the point to note, all the processors have the common, which is a sharing of a physical memory, which is this, the common main memory. Okay, another type of a system is called as a batch system. Maybe you might have heard about this before, batch system. So in the olden days, what happens in the computer is the people used to run one by one job in the computer. Okay, so the operator, remember, the operator is like a person. Go to the computer, just give single job, which means it will give one job, it will complete it, and then the computer give the result, then the second job. then the third job, then the fourth job, which means it was taking a lot of time and we were wasting the time of the CPU. So after that, they had developed a kind of a batch system. What do you mean by batch system? Like, imagine I am teaching one by one student. Okay, so one student will come to the class, I take a lesson. Second student come to the class, take a lesson. Third student come to the class, take a lesson. It's going to take long time and it is not a good way to conduct the classes because each student, it's going to take a lot of time from the teacher. So in the same way, instead of doing one by one job, what we do now, batch system. What is a batch system? It executes a group of jobs by transferring the control from one job to another job without having the user interaction in between. So what happens? Now instead of having one job, all the jobs together, we call it as a batch. Like, I am teaching for a group. I need not to teach each student separately. All the students come to the class together like a batch. That's why we say group or batch. So all of you come together and one by one, all together, I can teach inside the single classroom. In the same way, in the batch system, all the jobs will be given to the computer. The computer, instead of giving one by one, it will execute one after the other. Okay, watch what batch system does. It executes a group of jobs by transferring the control from one job to another job without any user interaction in between. No need of the user. Just give all the jobs together. The computer will do one after the other. But here again, please remember one important difference. Even though this is batch system, but one job after the another job. Okay, so remember, I normally explain this point with the hospital example. Okay, you go to the doctor. Okay, we have the experience of, the hospital thing. That's why I give this example. Go to the doctor. Okay, so when one patient goes, suppose I went to the doctor, I say, okay, doctor, I have this problem. Then the doctor said, okay, I want you to go to the lab test. Go to the lab test, do the X-ray, do the medical checkup, and after that, come back to me. Okay. Now, there is another patient waiting. What happens if the other patient is not allowed to go to the doctor until I complete all my work? Okay, imagine, it is not a real thing. Okay, so when I go to the doctor and I go to the lab test, lab test will take maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, or maybe sometimes more time. I go to the X-ray. The X-ray is going to take maybe 20-30 minutes and the doctor cannot see other patient. Okay, so this is the world system. The operating system. Only one job will go to the computer. After completing the whole job, then only the second job. Do you think it is good idea, one by one? How long we have to wait in the hospital if it is the case? The doctor will see only one patient at a time. Do you think it is a good idea?
No.
No. So normally what happens in the hospital? Can someone tell me? What happens at the hospital? When one patient go to the doctor say, okay, go to the medical examination. When the patient go to the medical examination, another patient go to the doctor. Yes or no?
Yes.
So the doctor time is not wasted. Yeah. The doctor is not going to just sit and wait for the patient to come from the lab and to do everything and to come. So what the doctor does, the second patient will go to the doctor. If the second patient wants some medical examination, the second patient will go to the medical department. Then third patient will go to the doctor. Like that, the doctor is not going to do one by one job. The doctor is going to do the job according to the situation. Okay, understand, this is actually the batch system. The batch system is actually one by one. One patient complete the whole thing, then the second patient. So this is not a good idea. So what is the solution for this? We got something called multi-programming batch system. So what is multi-programming batch system? The batch system in which the batch system which switches the CPU to another job when a job has to wait for some input and output task. So as I told you, when one patient is going for the medical, the other patient can go to the doctor. So in the same way, what the CPU does here, it will switch the CPU to another job when one job has to wait for some input and output task. So example, one process enter into the system and the process is doing some input or output, which means the CPU like a doctor is not doing anything because input is done by input device, output is done by output device. CPU is not going to do anything. That time, what the CPU can do? The CPU can take the second job. Okay, so what happens here? Multi-programming, a batch system in which switches the CPU to another job when a job has to wait for some input and output task. System will remember where it left off the previous job. Like, when we go to the doctor, as I said, when the patient goes to the medical examination and come back to the doctor again will not ask from the beginning what happened to you, because doctor remember the patient and say, okay, what is the result of your medical examination? In the same way, when one process go to the input and output, when it comes back, it remembers what it was doing, then it will continue from there. So don't worry about this point. We are going to discuss about that again later on. But what we understand, different type of operating system: batch system, multi-programming system. Now we call it as a time sharing system. In the here what's happening in the multi-programming system? Again, one by one only, because as I told you, one patient will go to the doctor see the patient is going for the medical examination. Second patient will go to the doctor see the patient, second patient go to the medical examination, third patient will go to the doctor. Like one by one patient only can go to the doctor. More than one patient cannot go. So in the computer system, CPU is powerful. If only we are running one job in the computer is going to be very wasted. It's not going to be used properly. For that reason, they developed time sharing operating system. So what is time sharing operating system? At the same time, we can run more than one process on the CPU. Okay, the CPU time is divided between number of users. Okay, so interactive multi-programmed system in which switches the CPU between different interactive programs. Each program running in the system will behave as if they are being run independently on several CPUs. What I think, I am the only user. What you think, you are the only user. User 1 will think I am the only user. But what is happening in the background? The CPU time is divided between multiple jobs. Okay, with the help of this, the CPU is properly used. This is called as a time sharing system. Okay, so this is how we have time sharing, multitasking. There are so many type of names we can use. Okay, now we are getting into a new environment. Not new environment, the environment which we are using. Okay, distributed computing. So what is distributed computing? We are talking about a single CPU here. Now we want to increase the speed of the computer. So we want to use more than one CPU, not just single CPU. Okay, so what we did, we just get one CPU, one memory. Imagine this is one computer. Okay, this is second computer. This is third computer. This is fourth computer. So what we did, this is called as a distributed systems. So collection of separate heterogeneous systems network together using the network. Okay, now here imagine computer 1, computer 2, computer 3, computer 4. What do we mean by heterogeneous system? Heterogeneous, please remember, there are two words you need to know: heterogeneous, homogeneous. Heterogeneous means different, homogeneous means same. What do you mean by heterogeneous? Maybe this is a Windows computer. Maybe this is an Apple computer. Maybe this is a Windows operating system. Maybe this is a Linux operating system. Maybe this is an Android system. Okay, so like different type of computers, different kind of structures of the computer, different kind of operating systems connected together with the help of a communication network. Now, my class is the example. I am using Windows computer, using Windows 12 operating system. You might be using, some of you might be using Apple laptop. Some of you might be using your Apple phone for listening to the class. Some of you might be using a tab, Samsung tab. Some of you might be using a Android operating system mobile. Okay, so we are all connected together. I am taking the class, you are getting the class. We are not using the same device. Every one of you are not using only a laptop with Windows. Every one of you are using different devices. Now, what is this? This is a collection. This is a collection of separate heterogeneous systems networked together using the network, either using a LAN or WAN. Now we are not using LAN because we are not inside the college. Now we are outside, so we are using internet. So all of us, we are connected like this now. with the help of a communication network, which is internet. Okay, so we don't share anything. Systems don't share the system clock, bus, or the memory. Everyone has got their own memory, their own CPU, but we are all connected with the help of a network. So this is the difference between a distributed system and this kind of system, symmetric system. You can see they are all sharing the same memory, which means they are all available in the same location. But now we need not to be available in the same location. We can stay in any place, but we can all get together connected to each other. So that is called as distributed system. Okay, so we'll just have a break of 5 minutes because all these topics are very heavy. So we'll have a break of 5 minutes, then we'll continue the lecture. We just have few slides, but I want to give some break so that you feel refreshed. After the break, we'll continue the lecture. Okay, just relax, okay, for 5 minutes. Okay, let's continue. So until this part, we try to understand different type of operating systems or the architectures. So we started to understand about single system, then we discussed about the multiprocessors and the computing environments. Okay. So now this is actually a concept which is there for a long time. We are calling it as virtualization. So virtualization, can someone get me a meaning of virtualization? If anyone remember or understand virtualization? Anyone got the meaning? Because you should understand the meanings also properly. Virtualization.
Like virtual world,
Okay, it's like a virtual world, which means it is not real.
not real.
Not real. So virtual means it is not real. Okay. Now something, the concept which is there in the computing for a long time, we call it as a virtualization. So what is a virtualization? It is creating a virtual version of something, which means we are creating something which is not real, including creating a virtual computer hardware, creating a virtual storage device, creating a computer network resource which is not real. Example, we can create a virtual computer. Okay, so we are going to create a virtual machine. I hope, have you completed security courses? Any one of you students? Introduction to security?
Yes, Mister.
Last semester you did it, yeah? Introduction to security. Are you doing now?
No, last semester.
Last semester. So I hope you have all created the virtual machines, yeah, to install the Kali Linux. Yes, or
Yes,
no?
Kali.
Kali Linux. So what we did there, we have our Windows computer, but we created a virtual computer and install Kali Linux inside that, which means the Linux where we have installed is a virtual machine. It's not a real computer hardware, but we try to create a virtual computer hardware, and inside that, inside our laptop, we created a virtual hardware, virtual machine, and inside that we have created the Kali Linux to practice some of the security related commands. This semester also we are going to do that, but we are going to create a Linux which is of Ubuntu Linux, a different type of a Linux, to practice the basic Linux commands. We are going to do the same thing. I will share with you the Linux virtual machine and the Oracle virtual box so that you can install that in your computers. Next class we'll discuss about that. Okay, so what is virtual here? The virtual is something not real, virtual version of computer hardware, virtual version of the storage, which means hard disk will not be there, but we are going to create a virtual hard disk which is not real. And also the network resources. There is one course called Innovation in Network and Security. Later on you are going to understand how can we have the network resources also which are not real, virtual, like virtual router, virtual switch, virtual network card, everything, the network devices are going to be virtual. Okay, so this has actually bring a revolution in the computer industry. Okay, because of virtualization, now we can achieve so many advanced things because of the concept of virtualization. How we are going to understand that? The first concept we understand is virtual machine. So what is virtual machine? We already know. It is a kind of a emulator or simulator or emulation of the computer system, where we create a virtual computer, virtual machine, or a virtual hardware. Okay, it's a layer of the software that enables this emulation is referred as hypervisor or virtual machine manager. We call it as VMM, virtual machine manager. So in our computer, we have a layer, something which enables or creates the simulator or emulation that is called as hypervisor or virtual machine manager. So it is actually in the middle between the computer hardware and the virtual machine. Okay, so like you can see here, it's one hardware. I will discuss about kernel in the next lecture. Okay, so what is kernel? I will tell you in the next lecture. So we have the process. Process is the programs which are running. Now, what we can do in the hardware with the help of virtual machine manager, as I told you, this VMM is this one, virtual machine manager, or we also call it as a hypervisor. Please remember this. hypervisor. So with the help of this virtual machine manager, this hardware can be divided into 3 virtual machines: virtual machine 1, virtual machine 2, virtual machine 3. And each one of them, they have got their own kernel. What is kernel? I will tell you later on, next lecture. Which means they have their own operating system. Please remember, kernel is a part of operating system. Okay, I will explain about that kernel later. So just remember for today, kernel is a part of operating system. So single system can be divided into 3 or more systems with the help of virtual machine manager, which has got its own operating system, its own process running, its own operating system, its own process running. So allows operating system to run applications within other operating system. That is virtualization. Now, how the virtualization has benefited us? With the help of virtualization, we got a new concept of cloud computing. So what is cloud computing? So if I want some services, like, I want to have an operating system, I want to have more storage, I want to have some, different kind of platform to different kind of software to work in my lab. So I need not to buy those softwares, I need not to buy the computers, I need not to buy anything. I can take the help of cloud computing. Okay, so cloud computing environments are composed of traditional operating system, means the normal operating system, virtual machine managers, and cloud management tool. If you look at this all together, we have a concept of virtual machines. Okay, so internet connectivity requires security, like we need to have the firewalls, so that it should be very secure here. Internet, cloud computer, cloud customer interface. Then here, virtual machine. Don't go to the picture to understand the concept of cloud computing. Okay, so what is cloud computing? We are going to take the help of internet and we get many services from cloud computing. What kind of services are we going to get from the cloud computing? Example, I want to have a server. Okay, imagine I want to work on a software. I want to have a server for my company. For example, for the college, I want to have a server to install some hardware, to install some software. Buying a server is going to be very expensive. It's very expensive. Thousands of reals we need to spend. I don't have money to buy that. Now I can take the help of cloud computing. I can take the server for rent, which means it is not a real server. Someone will give the server access from my laptop. I can access the server in somewhere far away with the help of internet. They normally use virtual machines here. Okay, if you understand this. Okay, so imagine that there is one computer, and now in that they create a virtual machine and they create a server, and for this computer they give me access with the help of a network. Okay, so the cloud customer interface, with the help of that, with the help of the internet, the customer will get the access. Means I use the internet, I take the server. Now by using my laptop, I log into that server, which is here, and I can install the hardware, I can install the software, I can do anything on this particular server. Okay, why we can take the help of cloud computing? Because it is very expensive to buy the server individually. And another example is, we are using already the storage from the cloud computing, like Google Drive. Okay, we are using Google Drive, we are using Microsoft OneDrive. There are many ways. Amazon cloud computing servers. So with the help of that, we are using storage. What do you mean by storage? I have a lot of data to store. Where I am going to store the data? I don't want to store the data in my memory. I'm going to store the data in the Google Drive. So the Google Drive is a cloud computing example for the storage. Okay, another example is, I want to get some software. For example, Blackboard. Blackboard is not installed in my computer. Blackboard is not installed in your computer. Okay, like Google Meet is not installed in our computer, but we are using the cloud computing from the Google, and I am going to take the meeting from my laptop. So that is not installed in my computer, but still with the help of cloud computing, it is possible. So there are many services are now happening because of the cloud environment or cloud computing, which is making possible with the help of virtual machines. Okay, so what thing we can do with the help of cloud computing? So it delivers computing, storage, even applications as services across the network. I gave you the example. We can use storage like Google Drive. We can use computing, like we can get the server. We can get even the applications like Blackboard, or any other application like Gmail, no need to install. We can use it, Google Meet from the network. Okay, so there are some examples given here. Virtualization is because of virtualization, this is possible. Example is Amazon Elastic Cloud Computing Cloud has thousands of servers, millions of virtual machines, petabytes of storage available across the internet. How do we use that? Pay based on usage. We just pay and we are going to use. Okay, but Amazon is normally we are not using. Amazon is for the companies. They normally use for storage and for the systems. Okay, we are using only Google because from the college we got the services of Google or Microsoft. Okay, so public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud. What is public cloud? Like the public services anyone can store, like the government cloud. Private cloud only from the company. Now here it's a mix of these two, public cloud and the private cloud. Okay, we can take software as a service. Like I told you, I'm going to take a Blackboard or any other software as a service from the cloud computing. I can take platform as a service, like I'm using Windows. I want to do my server in Linux. I want to have some other server. Please remember, platform means operating system. Platform means operating system. Please note down. Platform means operating system. What do you mean by platform as a service? I want to operate on another operating system. I want to operate on another operating system. So I want to take the service from the cloud. Platform as a service. I pay the money for them. I use the software. Infrastructure as a service. So like I want to get the server, I want to use it because I don't want to buy the server, I can get it. So there are many services we can avail with the help of cloud computing. Just 1 second, please. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, now a few slides to complete our lecture. Now, some of the systems, as we discussed about the cloud computing system and virtual system, there are some kind of computing system. We call it as real-time systems. I already gave the examples of embedded systems in the beginning. Okay, so real-time systems, they should work in real time. Normally, what happens is in the general purpose computer systems, when we want to perform the job, sometimes there will be some delay. Okay, so example, when I'm downloading something, when I want to process something, when I'm executing some job, sometimes there is a possibility of a delay. But in some environments, in some computing systems, the time is very important. Because imagine that in the research world, something has to come exactly on time. Okay, so in such kind of situations, we need the operating system which has to do the job exactly in the real time. There is no possibility of delay in the time. It should do everything properly on time. So in such situations, we need an operating system which works or which completes the process in a particular time or a specific time without any delay. So these kind of systems are called as real-time operating systems. Okay. So real-time systems is the one that must process information and produce a response within a specified time. So here, what you need to remember in the real time, time is very important. Okay, if the time has passed, there is a risk. Else, risk severe consequences, including failure of the system. Okay, so where do we use the real-time operating system? They just gave a general example here, like anti-lock brake system in our car. If you understand the old cars, if you just put the brake, the car will go a little further and stop. The car won't stop immediately. Okay, but the new cars now, if you look at the new cars, we call it as ABS system. The boys might be understanding better. Okay, so even some girls know that. Okay, what do you mean by ABS system? Anti-lock brake system. If I put a brake, the car stops immediately. There is no possibility of moving a car even a small fraction of inch. It will just stop there. That is called as ABS. Look at your cars. It is mentioned in the manual. Your car has got ABS system or not. Okay, so what is this ABS system? Is a kind of example of real-time system, which means there is no possibility of moving the car. In a real time, it should start. When I put the brake, the car should stop. Okay, so that is one example. In the same way, we can use in the air control, means in the flights. When the flight is going, so when the flight should take off, which direction the flight should go, it should exactly happen over the time. There is no possibility of delay on the time. Okay, over temperature monitor in nuclear power station. Example, nuclear power means like the nuclear bombs. If in this power station, if the temperature is high, there might be a possibility of an accident. So if there is a temperature high, immediately within a second, it has to give the message and it has to start working out on the power station. Okay, so microwave oven temperature controller. So if the temperature reaches to the particular level, it should stop. Okay, in the same way, in the medical also, we can use these kind of system like, ECG monitor, like we want to check the heart, how the heart is working. It should show even second to second how the heart is working. There, time is very important. It cannot delay. If it is delay, the heart reading will change automatically. So here, the time is very important. So please do remember, these are some kind of operating system where time is very important. Okay, and in this also, there are two types: hard real time, soft real time. Hard real time means time is more important. Soft real time means time little bit delay is okay. Means time is important, but sometimes little delay is okay. So there are two type of real-time systems: hard real-time and soft real-time. Okay, so the examples of this operating system: free real-time operating system, RTOS, and QNX is a Linux operating system. QNX Linux is a free operating system for the real-time systems. There are many examples. Okay, and open source systems, I hope everyone in the class know about what is open source system. Open source operating system is nothing but the code of the operating system is available to everyone. We can modify it, we can change it, we can do anything we want. Okay, example is Linux. Okay, but Windows is not open source. Windows, because from Microsoft, they are selling for the money, but Linux is open source. We can easily change that. Okay, so what is the open source system here? Operating system made available in source code format rather than the binary, which means we know the source code, we know the programming, we can change it. So counter to the copy protection and digital rights management, which means no copy protection here. It is opposite to copy protection. It's open. It's not copy protected. Anyone can copy, anyone can change it. Okay, so it started by Free Software Foundation, which has got copyleft, GNU public license. So they say copyright here, and this is now copyleft. No copyright is needed. Anyone can copy this particular software. Examples: GNU Linux, BSD Linux. There are many. Some core Mac operating system, and there are different type of Linux we have available. Okay, so with that, we have completed our lecture number 1. So hope all the points are clear. So next class when we come back, we are going to get into our lecture number 2, and there we are going to understand more about the process. The important chapter starts related to the process. Hope all the points are clear what we have seen today. Do you have any queries or any questions, students?
No, Mr.
Okay. Okay, so hope my language is clear. I'm clear in explaining everything. If you have any query or anything in between, you can stop me and you can ask me to repeat the concepts. Okay, because as I mentioned, this first lecture or the second lecture are theoretical. Once we go into the later lectures, they will be little heavy plus they will be heavy plus interesting also, because we have some algorithms. We will be working out on the algorithms. We will be solving some problems. It's going to be interesting plus little bit heavy. So don't miss any lecture. As I told you last week, if there is any missing or any gap in between the lecture, you will not understand the next lecture properly. So if you miss any lecture, you have to watch my recording. I put my recording in the Blackboard, so you can watch the recording whenever you find time to repeat the concepts, so that you can understand the topic better. And in between the class, if you have any queries or any clarifications, you can stop and you can interrupt me, ask me to repeat. I will repeat.